Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hi everyone, this is Mallika Pathak from Miranda House, University of Delhi, continuing with the course on ionic equilibria for the students of BSc Honours Chemistry and BSc with Chemistry. This is Module 8, Lecture 1 of the series. The academic expert of the course is Dr. Amrita T. Sheikh, and the recording is being done under the DTH Swayamprabha project of the MHRD, New Delhi. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to talk about solubility. So, we are going to talk about the solubility of salts, water unsaturated solution, water saturated solution, which of these salts are going to be more soluble, which are going to be less soluble, how do we decide which are going to be more soluble, how do we decide which are going to be less soluble. So, we're going to talk about the solubility today. This solubility is going to be related to the common ion effect to see what is the effect of adding a salt which has an ion common to the salt that we are talking about. What is precipitation? When does precipitation take place? So, we are also going to talk about when and how do we classify what is precipitation and which salts are going to precipitate. With this, we will also talk about the equilibria that is established when we dissolve complex ions into the solution, and this will be followed by the qualitative analysis of the cations based on the solubility of the salt. So we are going to discuss how the qualitative analysis of cations take place, how do we classify them into group based on their solubility. Let's talk about the solubility. So when you dissolve a solute into the solvent to make a solution, the amount of solute that goes into the solution will depend upon the nature of the solute, the nature of the solvent, and the temperature. So we have seen that there are certain solids which will dissolve more, there are certain solids which will dissolve less. Now this thing leads to certain terms that we have heard about, we know a little about them as laymen and also as students of chemistry. So the first term that we know is dissolution. When you dissolve a substance into the solution, that is called as dissolution, right? And when that salt or the solid is coming out of the solution, then it is called as precipitation. So dissolution and precipitation are reverse of each other. Then there are terms like unsaturated solution. When you're dissolving a solute into the solvent to make a solution, the salt or the solute can go into the solvent and you can keep on adding more and more amount of the solid into the solvent and the solid continues to get dissolved. Now the solution which has the capacity to still take up more and more of solute, then it is called as unsaturated solution, where the maximum capacity to which the solid can be taken up in a solution has still not been overcome. But when it is overcome, when you cannot dissolve any more of the solute, then it is called as the saturated solution. You are adding solute to the solvent, it dissolves, you add more amount of the solute to the solvent, it gets dissolved, and after a point, it does not get dissolved. Then it is called as a saturated solution. Now, when this happens, there is an equilibrium which establishes between the solid, which is in excess, and the dissolved form in the solution. So, the solid which has dissolved will dissociate into ions and will be in equilibrium with the solid which is undissolved. Now, this is called as an equilibria which is established due to the solution getting formed. And this equilibrium is dynamic in nature. Your solid is continuously getting dissolved and dissociating into ions, and the ions are getting precipitated out to form the solid. So this is an equilibrium condition and this establishes the saturated solution condition. Now comes the point about solubility. So the maximum amount of solid that can be dissolved in a solvent at a particular temperature is called as the solubility. So it is the greatest amount of substance that will dissolve in equilibrium in a specified volume of the solvent at a particular temperature, right? So the solubility of any solid in any solution is expressed either in terms of grams per liter or moles per liter as in molarity, and it is given at a particular temperature. And you also know that when you increase the temperature, the solubility increases. So you want to dissolve sugar in water, you want to dissolve any substance in water, then if you increase the temperature, then it will dissolve easily. If you decrease the temperature, it will dissolve slowly or it might precipitate out. So you might see that the crystals of sugar get formed when you cool the same solution. And when you heat the solution, then the sugar keeps on dissolving. So the capacity to take up more and more sugar is there as you increase the temperature. Whereas if you cool that same solution down, it will precipitate out. That is, you will find the crystals of sugar coming out of the solution. Now, solutes can be very soluble, less soluble, or there can be substances which are very sparingly soluble, very little soluble. So we're going to talk about this. So when you take ionic substances, they immediately dissolve. So you take sodium chloride in water, you put it in water and you just stir a little and it dissolves because sodium chloride is an ionic crystal and it goes into the solution, gets hydrated and just dissolves immediately. Whereas you have silver chloride, it is partially soluble because you have to dissolve and very little of silver chloride will go into the water to form a solution. In fact, you might feel that it has not dissolved, but if you measure the conductance of the water before silver chloride was dissolved and after silver chloride was tried to dissolve, you will find that there is a difference in the conductance. Although you might feel that the silver chloride is still there as such and has not dissolved, but some amount of it would have dissolved, and because of this, there is a increase in the conductance. So this is called as solubility, and this kind of solid which is dissolving very little is called as partially soluble salt. So if there is not much solid, it will all dissolve. As more and more solid is added, the solution will become saturated and there will be an equilibrium which will be established. The equilibrium between the solid which is undissolved and the equilibrium between the solid which has gone into the solution and dissociated into the ions. So the dissolution and the precipitation continues to take place and there is a dynamic equilibrium which is established. Now, because there is an equilibrium, there will be a corresponding equilibrium constant. Therefore, you will write down the equilibrium constant as concentration of Pb2 plus into concentration of sulfate divided by concentration of PbSO4. Now, because this solid is there, its concentration can be taken as unity and be combined with the equilibrium constant. So the denominator of the equilibrium constant will be combined with the equilibrium constant and you get a new equilibrium constant which is called as Ksp. And this Ksp is equal to Pb2 plus into sulfate, that is the multiple of the concentration of the ions in the solution. And how has it come? Because the equilibrium constant that you get for the equilibria has been combined with the concentration of the solid and its activity is taken as 1. So that once combined gives you another constant, that is Ksp, solubility product constant, and that is equal to the product of the concentration of the ions in the solution, right? So similarly, if you take another salt, let's say barium sulfate. Now this is also a sparingly soluble salt. So BaSO4 will go into the solution to give you Ba2 plus and sulfate, and these can precipitate out to give you barium sulfate. So there is a dynamic equilibrium. Again, when there is a dynamic equilibrium, you get a equilibrium constant and then you write a constant which is based on the solubility. So your Ksp, which is the solubility product constant, has been obtained by combining the concentration of the solid with the equilibrium constant and therefore the Ksp then becomes the product of the concentration of the ions in the solution. Now please remember that these Ksp values are given at a particular temperature. So this one is given at 25 degrees centigrade, and Ksp therefore represents the amount of dissolution, how much of the solid has dissolved into the ions. So greater is the value of Ksp, more is the solid dissolved, smaller is the value of Ksp, smaller is the amount of ions in the solution, or smaller is the amount of solid that has dissolved, right? So another example, you're given lead chloride. So PbCl2 goes into the solution to give you Pb2 plus and 2Cl minus. How will you write down your Ksp? Now just see here, PbCl2 dissociates to give you Pb2 plus and 2Cl minus, right? So Ksp will be equal to Pb2 plus into Cl minus square. That is Ksp, the solubility product constant, or the solubility product is equal to the product of the concentration of products raised to the power of their stoichiometric coefficients. Now just see some of these examples. So you are given any general reaction MyXZ, which dissociates in the form of YMZ plus ZX minus XY minus. Then Ksp can be written as Mz plus to the power of Y xy minus to the power of z. So product of the concentration of products raised to the power of their stoichiometric coefficients in the equilibrium. So if the salt is MgNH4PO4, which is dissociating to give you Mg2 plus NH4 plus PO4 3 minus, so the Ksp will be the multiple of the concentration of products, because the stoichiometric coefficient is 1 in this case. In the case of ZnOH whole twice, ZnOH whole twice dissociates to give you Zn2 plus and 2OH minus. So Ksp will be equal to Zn2 plus into OH minus whole square. Similarly, if calcium phosphate is given to you, which dissociates to give you what? 3Ca2 plus 2PO4 3 minus, then the Ksp will be equal to Ca2 plus to the power of 3, PO4 3 minus to the power of 2. So you have now the Ksp, solubility product constant or solubility constant. So water solubility we did define before. It is the maximum amount of solid that can be dissolved in a solvent to make a solution. So a more appropriate definition would be the quantity of solute that dissolves to form a saturated solution. And generally it is given as gram per liter. More appropriately, now it is given as moles per liter. So molar solubility is the number of moles that dissolve to give 1 liter of saturated solution. And as I have already said, because this is coming from the equilibrium constant, it has to be determined from the experiment. You have to perform the experiment and then only you can determine it. So please understand that the Ksp expression applies to all saturated solutions. Now, so Ksp is there. Now, if you want to find out the value of solubility and Ksp, now generally the solubility values are given in grams per liter, but you will first convert them into moles per liter if you want to find out the value of Ksp. Then once you get the molar concentration of ions, you will use them to find out the value of Ksp. And if you are given the value of Ksp, you will first find out the molar concentration of the ions in the solution, that is moles per liter, that is molar solubilities, and then convert them into grams per liter for the solubility to be expressed in the general terms. So these are the values of Ksp for some salts at 25 degrees centigrade. You can see the values are not very high, they are quite low, because these are for the partially soluble salts or the sparingly soluble salts. So you have values, see, 10 to the power minus 10, 10 to the power minus 10, 10 to the power minus 9, 10 to the power minus 8, some as low as 10 to the power minus 37. So the solubility values are not very high. So these are all examples of sparingly soluble salts. So Now let's talk about the solubility in terms of each and every salt and how can we use it to solve the numericals. So we've talked about KSP, and KSP is measured by the equilibrium process of the salt's ion concentration. So at the equilibrium, what is the salt's ion? That gives you the value of KSP. So if I have a salt like AXBY, which dissociates to give you XAY plus YBX minus, then your KSP is AY plus to the power of X, BX minus to the power of Y. Now see, these are some insoluble compounds and their KSP values. So what do KSP values allow us to do? They allow us to compare the solubilities of different salts. So if you have two salts with solubilities or KSP values which are different from each other, the one with lower KSP value will indicate less soluble. The one with higher value of KSP will indicate more solubility. So let's take here an example of silver chloride. Silver chloride dissolves to give you Ag plus and Cl minus in the solution. Let's say this is a saturated solution which has been formed and the equilibrium has already been established. Now I am able to measure the concentration of Ag plus as 1.67 into 10 to the power minus 5 molar. What does it imply? That the concentration of Cl minus is also going to be the same. Now I've got the concentration of Ag plus, I've got the concentration of Cl minus. Can I find out the value of Ksp? Yes. Ksp is equal to Ag plus into Cl minus. I just multiply the two and I get the value of Ksp. Right? Now some numericals for our better understanding. Here the solubility of lead iodide is given as 0.00130 molar at 25 degrees centigrade. Now can I find out the value of Ksp? Yes, I can. First, you have to write down the equilibria. So PbI2 solid goes to give you Pb2 plus in solution plus 2I minus, right? Now, when you have a Ksp, you will write down the equilibrium constant value for that. So equilibrium constant is equal to Pb2 plus into I minus whole square. Now we need to find out the concentration of Pb2 plus and I minus, right? 1 mole of PbI2 produces 1 mole of Pb2 plus and 2 moles of I minus. Now solubility of lead iodide is given here. So can you find out the concentrations of Pb2 plus and I minus in the solution? Yes. Pb2 plus 1 mole getting from 1 mole, right? So Pb2 plus will be equal to 0.00130 molar. But I minus, from 1 mole of PbI2, I get 2 moles of I minus. So the concentration of I minus is going to be 2 into 0.00130 m, which is equal to 0.00260 m. Now I've got the concentrations, just substitute. Ksp is equal to Pb2 plus into I minus whole square. You've got Pb2 plus value, you've got I minus value from here. Take a square of that and you get Ksp equal to this. There is a simpler way also of doing it. This solubility is written as small s, right? So for Pb2 plus solubility value will be S. For I minus it is going to be 2S. So when you substitute here S into 2S whole square, so you get 4S cube, 4 into solubility cube. Now let us do another numerical. The KSP for MgF2 is given as this at 25 degrees centigrade. You have to calculate the solubility in moles per liter and in grams per liter. Very simple. MgF2 dissociates to give you what? Mg2 plus in solution and F minus in solution. 1 mole of MgF2 gives you 1 mole of Mg2 plus and 2 moles of F minus. So let's see how we can write this. So KSP can be written as Mg2 plus into F minus whole square. Now if I say X as the solubility, then I can write KSP is equal to X for Mg2 plus and for F minus 2x and to the power of 2. So you get Ksp is equal to 4x cube. Now you want to find out the value of solubility. So x, which is the solubility, will be written as cube root of Ksp upon 4. Just substitute the value and you get this value as the x. This is the solubility, right? Now this is in moles per liter. Now you want to get it in grams per liter. So what do? You multiply it with the molar mass and you get it in grams per liter. Now another numerical for the salt AgI at 25 degrees centigrade, the KSP is given as this. Now can I get the value of solubility? Yes, I can. AgI dissociates to give you Ag plus and A minus, right? So if I see the changes, for 1 mole of Ag I get 1 mole of Ag plus and 1 mole of I minus. So S being the solubility, Ag plus S, I minus S. So KSP, which is equal to Ag plus into I minus, can be written as equal to S square. So we are given the value of KSP. So KSP is equal to S square. So then you get the value of solubility in moles per liter as 1.2 into 10 to the power minus 8 molar after taking the square root. Another numerical for the salt PbCl2, right? So PbCl2 dissociates to give you Pb2 plus and 2Cl minus. So KSP can be written as S into 2S whole square, because for Cl minus you are getting 2S, right? So KSP is equal to S into 2S whole square. This is equal to 4S cube. And now 4S cube is equal to KSP. So S will be equal to cube root of KSP upon 4 and you will get this value. Now another numerical. What is the maximum Cl minus in the solution with 0.010 molar Hg22 plus without forming Hg2Cl2, right? Now, how will you go that? Hg2Cl2 dissociates to give you Hg22 plus 2Cl minus. KSP is here, right? Now, precipitation will initiate when the product of the concentration exceeds the value of KSP. So KSP value you find, and at that point the Cl minus concentration at the KSP will tell you. If you go more than that, it will be undergoing precipitation. So let's see what happens. So Hg2Cl2 giving you Hg22 plus 2Cl minus. So KSP, which is equal to 1.4 into 10 to the power minus 18 is equal to Hg22 plus into Cl minus whole square, right? So Cl minus will be equal to under root of KSP upon Hg22 plus. Substitute the value of KSP, substitute the value of Hg22 plus, and you will get the value of Cl minus, which is going to be maximum in the solution without forming Hg2Cl2. So KSP allows us to compare the solubility of solids that dissociate into the same number of ions. The bigger the KSP, the more soluble the solid. But if they dissociate into different number of ions, then we have to solve it mathematically. Now let us see the effect of common ion on the solubility. Now we have studied hydrolysis, we have studied weak acids, weak bases, and if you add an ion common to that equilibria, then the equilibria shifts in the direction to undo that change. And same principle can be applied here. Let us take the example of calcium fluoride. So calcium fluoride dissociates to give you calcium ions and fluoride ions. Now if you add another solid which has an ion common to these two, then the equilibria will be favored in the backward direction and the solubility of our salt calcium fluoride will decrease. So if you add an ion common to the equilibrium, then the equilibrium shifts towards the reactants side according to the Le Chatelier principle. So let us see. We have taken the example of lead chromate here. Lead chromate dissociates in solution to give you Pb2 plus and chromate ions. Now if you were to add chromate to this equilibria, then the equilibria will be favored in the backward direction. That means the solid will be precipitated from the solution. Although this was already a sparingly soluble salt, and that is why there is an equilibrium, but when you add an ion common to the equilibria, then more precipitation will take place and the solubility will be further reduced in the solution. To understand it better, let's take the example of numericals. In this numerical, you have to find out the solubility of calcium hydroxide in a 0.1 mole of calcium nitrate solution. Very simple. You have to find out the solubility of calcium hydroxide when calcium nitrate is also present here. So there is common ion effect, right? The solubility of the Ksp value of calcium hydroxide is given as this at 25 degrees centigrade. Now let's see what happens. Calcium hydroxide undergoes this kind of equilibria to give you calcium ions and hydroxide ions. You have initial concentration as 0.1 for calcium ions because that are coming from calcium nitrate. Hydroxide is 0. Now calcium hydroxide undergoes ionization when it goes into the solution. So it gives you calcium ions and hydroxide ions. So the concentration changes take place. At equilibrium, the calcium ions will now become 0.1 plus S, zero point 0.1 coming from calcium nitrate and S coming from calcium hydroxide. The hydroxide concentration is 2H because 1 mole of calcium hydroxide is giving you 2 moles of hydroxide ions. Now, because S is very small, therefore 0.1 plus S can be taken as 0.1, right? So your Ksp, which is given as 6.5 into 10 to the power minus 6, can be equated to 0.1 plus S into 2S whole square, which can be finally written as 0.1 into 2S whole square. Now find out the value of S. The S value can be calculated because you are given the value of Ksp for the calcium hydroxide and you get this as the S value. Now because we have made certain assumption here, let us see whether our assumption causes lot of error. So S value is 4 into 10 to the power minus 3 for a concentration of 0.1 molar. So if you calculate, the percentage is 4%. It's a very low error percentage. So our assumption was correct in taking 0.1 plus S as 0.1. What is the solubility of barium sulfate in pure water and in 0.10 molar barium nitrate? The Ksp for barium sulfate is given as 1.1 into 10 to the power minus 10 at 25 degrees centigrade. So barium sulfate will ionize in solution to give you Ba2 plus and SO42 minus. So Ksp is equal to Ba2 plus into SO42 minus, which is equal to x square. So x is equal to under root Ksp and that is equal to 1 into 10 to the power minus 5 m. Now find out the solubility of barium sulfate in barium nitrate. Now barium nitrate will ionize to give you barium ions and nitrate ions. So the initial concentration of barium 2 plus can be taken as 0.010, whereas for sulfate it is 0 only. Now let's say X amount of barium sulfate ionizes to give you Ba2 plus and SO4 2 minus. So the equilibrium concentration of Ba2 plus will be 0.010 plus X and sulfate will be X. Substitute the values in the Ksp. So Ksp becomes 0.010 plus X into X. Now because Ksp values are very low, therefore X can be assumed to be negligible in terms of 0.010. So 0.010 plus X can be taken as 0.010. So Ksp now becomes 0.010 into X and you can get the value of X. Now what do you see? That the Ksp value has significantly decreased in the presence of common ion. It was initially 10 to the power minus 5. Now it has become 10 to the power minus 8. Let us talk about precipitation. Suppose I have a salt of the type MpXQ which goes into the solution to give you PMN plus QXM minus. Then I can write down the KSP. KSP is the product of the concentration of the ions raised to the power of their stoichiometric coefficients. Now here the concentrations that I have taken are the equilibrium concentrations when the solution is saturated. There is an equilibrium between the solid and the ions in the solution. Suppose I take the concentrations which are other than the equilibrium concentrations and multiply them in the manner which is similar to KSP. Then what we get is called as ion product. It is nothing but similar to the reaction quotient that you have studied while doing the chemical equilibria. So ionic product or the ion product is Q, and it is equal to product of the concentration of the ions raised to the power of the stoichiometric coefficients. And here the concentrations that are used are those concentrations which are taken at any given time. They are not necessarily the equilibrium concentration or the concentrations measured at saturated conditions. Now, if your Q is greater than KSP, then the precipitation will occur in the solution. If your Q and KSP are equal, then it is a saturated condition and there will be no precipitation. But if KSP is greater than Q, then there will be no precipitation at all. So Q greater than KSP means precipitation. KSP greater than Q means no precipitation. Now let us apply this to some numericals. A solution of 75 ml of 0.020 M BaCl2 is added to a 125 ml of 0.040 M Na2SO4. Will a precipitate form? KSP is equal to 1.5 into 10 to the power minus 9 M at 25 degrees centigrade. Now how will you do this? We know that precipitate will form if Q is greater than KSP. So first we need to calculate the value of Q. Whether it is greater than or smaller than KSP can be only found if you calculate the value of Q. So Q is equal to what? It is the product of the concentration of the ions. Now, what is the concentration of the ions? For Ba2 plus, it will be number of moles of Ba2 plus upon total volume. So, molarity is given to you, volume is given to you. You just multiply 0.075 into 0.020 divided by 0.075 plus 0.125. We have converted everything into capital M and L, that is molarity and liters. So we get 0.0075 M. Similarly for sulfate, we are given the volume, we convert it into liters, multiply it with the molarity divided by the total volume, and we get the concentration of sulfate in molarity. Now find out the value of Q. You get the value of Q as 1.9 into 10 to the power minus 4. Here now you see that the Q value is more than KSP, so precipitate will be formed. If you were to find out the equilibrium concentrations, you would set up a initial change and equilibrium table as we have done before. Another numerical. Does a precipitate form when 0.1 liters of 0.30 molar calcium nitrate is mixed with 0.20 liter of 0.06 molar NaF? Now, how does calcium fluoride ionize? It ionizes to give you calcium 2 plus and 2F minus. Find out the molarity of calcium 2 plus. The same way, we are given the volume, we are given the molarity, and we can get it in molarity. So first you multiply the volume with the molarity, get the moles, then divide it by the total volume, and you get the calcium 2 plus concentration. Similarly, you can get the concentration of F minus. Now that you've got the concentration of calcium 2 plus and F minus, just multiply to get the value of Q. Because 2F minus are getting formed, so your equation is Q is equal to Ca2 plus into F minus whole square. Now multiply 0.1 into 0.040 whole square, you get 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 4. Again, Q is greater than KSP, so CaF2 will precipitate. What concentration of Ag plus is required to precipitate only AgBr in a solution that contains both Br minus and Cl minus at a concentration of 0.02 m? So AgBr goes into the solution to give you what? Ag plus and Br minus. KSP is equal to 7.7 into 10 to the power minus 13 and KSP is equal to Ag plus into Br minus. So you can get the value of Ag plus as KSP upon Br minus and you get it as 3.9 into 10 to the power minus 11 m. What about AgCl? AgCl goes into the solution to give you Ag plus and Cl minus. So KSP is equal to 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 10, which is equal to Ag plus into Cl minus. So Ag plus, which is required to precipitate AgCl, is KSP upon Cl minus and comes out to be 8 into 10 to the power minus 9m. Now because Ag plus required to precipitate AgBr is less than that for AgCl, therefore it means AgBr will precipitate before the AgCl. This is also something that you can figure out from the KSP values. The KSP value for AgBr is lower than the KSP value of AgCl. Therefore, the precipitation will be faster for AgBr and later for AgCl. Equilibria and complex ions. Let us talk about the relationship between the equilibrias and the complex ions. But before we do that, let's recall what are complexes. Complexes are those species in which there is a central metal atom or ion which is bound to neutral molecules or atoms or ions which are called as ligands. These ligands are capable of donating or sharing their electron pair with the central metal atom through the coordinate covalent bond. The species are represented as CrNH3 whole 6 3 plus. So there is a square bracket which shows this is a complex species. Other examples are NiH2O whole 6 2 plus, CuNH3 whole 4 2 plus, CrNH3 whole 6 3 plus. The number of ligands which are attached to the central metal atom are called as coordination number. Generally it is 4 or 6. So you will have sometimes 4 as a coordination number. The other time it is 6. So just see CuNH3 whole 4 2 plus has a coordination number of 4. CrNH3 whole 6 has a coordination number of 6. So the ligands which are attached to the central metal ion, the number is called as the coordination number. Now, when you have these equilibria which are taking place, where the formation of the complexes is taking place, then for each equilibria, there will be a equilibrium constant associated with it. That equilibrium constant is called as formation constant if you see it as a formation of the complexes. But if you see it as the dissociation of the complex to give you metal and ligand, then it is called as dissociation constant. Let's take a look at it. Now, suppose you have a reaction in which Cu2 plus combines with 4 ammonia to give you CuNH3 whole 4 2 plus. Now, do you think that this reaction takes place in single step? No, it does not. It takes place in multiple steps. So Cu2 plus will combine with one ammonia, then with the second ammonia, then with the third ammonia, and then with the fourth ammonia. For each of those 4 steps, there will be a separate stability constant. And there will be also a stability constant for the complete reaction. So Cu2 plus combining to give you 4 ammonia to give you CuNH3 4 2 plus. And the equilibrium constant will be written as Kf is equal to CuNH3 whole 4 2 plus upon Cu2 plus into NH3 whole 4. Now, like all other equilibrium constant, this value will also depend upon the temperature. Normally, these metal ions are not present as such. They are complexed with the water molecules which are acting as ligands. And water molecules are being replaced by stronger ligands like ammonia so that complexes are getting formed. So this is called as a ligand exchange, and the equilibrium can be written simply as Cu2 plus 4 ammonia giving you CuNH3 whole 4 2 plus, or it can also be written as complexes of water with the Cu2 plus which are being replaced by ammonia molecules. So as I've already said that the ligand molecules or the ions combine with the metal ions in a stepwise manner. Just see this example. Ag plus combines with ammonia to give you AgNH3 plus. AgNH3 plus combines with ammonia to give you AgNH3 whole twice plus. And for each of these steps, there is a separate formation constant. You can write down the value of the formation constant. How do you write it? Products upon the concentration of reactants to the power of the stoichiometric coefficient. So AgNH3 plus upon Ag plus into NH3, AgNH3 2 plus upon AgNH3 plus into NH3, right? The Kf values are given to you. Now, if you were to find the combined formation constant for the whole overall reaction, the overall reaction can be written as Ag plus combining with 2 ammonia to give you AgNH3 2 plus. Now if you have to find out the value of Kf for this reaction, then Kf can be written as AgNH3 2 plus upon Ag plus into NH3 whole square. This can be obtained if you multiply the Kf1 with the Kf2. What is Kf1? I am repeating AgNH3 plus upon Ag plus into NH3. What is Kf2? AgNH3 2 plus upon AgNH3 plus into NH3. So if you combine the two reactions, then the Kf1 have to be multiplied. And if you had to find out the value of dissociation constant, then the dissociation constant will be equal to 1 upon Kf. Let me mention here that there are two strategies for dissolving a water insoluble ionic solid. One is if the anion of the solid is a good base, the solubility is greatly increased by acidifying the solution. Second, in the cases where the anion is not sufficiently basic, the ionic solid often can be dissolved in a solution containing a ligand that forms stable complex ions with its cation. Now, let's again go back to AgNH3 2 plus. We have talked about it, but let's do a complete analysis of the equilibria. In the equilibrium, when you dissolve ammonia and Ag, you will have many species. The species which are going to be there are NH3, Ag plus, AgNH3 plus and AgNH3 2 plus. In fact, you already know now that metal ions will be present in a hydrated form. So instead of writing Ag plus, you should write it as AgH2O2 plus, and instead of writing as AgNH3 plus, you should write it as AgH2ONH3 plus. But normally we write it as Ag plus and AgNH3 plus, but the accurate way would be AgH2O2 plus and AgH2NH3 plus. So the equilibria should have been accurately written as AgH2O2 plus ammonia giving you AgH2NH3 plus water. Because your representation has changed, so your representation of the K will also look a little different, but it's one and the same thing. AgH2NH3 plus into AgH2O2 plus into NH3 is equal to 2.1 into 10 to the power 3. The value will remain the same. Then in the second case, AgH2ONH3 plus NH3 giving you AgNH3 2 plus 2 water. The equilibria can be written as AgNH3 2 plus divided by AgH2O NH3 plus into NH3. The value again remains the same, 8.2 into 10 to the power 3. So your Kf values do not change, but the representation of your equilibrias and the equations will change if you take into account the waters which are acting as the hydration sphere or which are acting as the ligand. Again, the way you were summing those equations, Ag plus ammonia giving you AgNH3 plus, AgNH3 plus ammonia giving you AgNH3 2 plus. Similarly, when you add these two equations, the ones involving the water, you would Write it as AgH2O2 plus 2 ammonia giving you AgNH3 2 plus 2 water. So the equilibria Ag plus 2 ammonia giving you AgNH3 2 plus should have been accurately written as AgH2O2 plus 2 ammonia giving you AgNH3 2 plus 2 water, because they are just representations of the same equilibria. So your Kf will also be determined in the similar manner to that you had done before. So your Kf, the overall formation constant, will be the multiple of the individual formation constant. You multiply the two formation constant and you get the value of overall formation constant. So you must remember here that the complex ions are often insoluble in water. Their formation can be used to dissolve otherwise insoluble salts. Often as the complex ions form, the equilibria will shift to the right and cause the insoluble salt to become more soluble. You use this actually. When you do a test for chloride ions, what do? You add silver nitrate to it. The precipitate of silver chloride is formed. This precipitate, how do you check whether it is silver chloride or silver bromide or silver iodide? You add ammonia to it. When you add ammonia to it in excess, it dissolves. Then you know that it is silver chloride. So this is the concept that you are using there to dissolve an insoluble salt by formation of a complex ion. And uh, you already use it in your classes and you've already done it. So I've just talked about it. So silver chloride ionizes to give you Ag plus and Cl minus. If you add ammonia in excess, it forms AgNH3 2 plus. This is the formation constant. This is the solubility product. If you want to find out the overall equilibrium constant, then it will be equal to Ksp into K formation. You multiply the two and you will get this value. You must remember here that the equations are added and the equilibrium constants are multiplied. So the equilibrium constant for dissolving silver chloride in ammonia is not large. You must see here it is not large. However, when the concentration of the ammonia is sufficiently high, the complex ion and the chloride ion must also be high and silver chloride will dissolve, and that is what is happening in the test for chloride ions in solution. Now just to wrap up the complexes and the equilibria, we must take another example. The example that we have taken is tetramine copper 2 complex. The tetramine copper 2 complex, as other complexes, will form in a stepwise manner. So Cu2 plus will combine with ammonia to give you CuNH3 2 plus. There will be a formation constant for that. CuNH3 2 plus will combine with ammonia to give you CaNH3 whole twice 2 plus. You have an equilibrium constant for that also. CuNH3 2 plus will combine with ammonia to give you CuNH3 whole thrice 2 plus K3. CuNH3 whole thrice 2 plus will combine with ammonia to give you CuNH3 whole 4 2 plus, and again you have a K. You want to find out the value of Cu2 plus 4 ammonia giving you CuNH3 4 2 plus. That is, you want to find out the value of the formation constant. What do you have to do? You multiply the different equilibrium constants which are there and you will get the value of overall formation constant. So the overall formation constant is the multiple of K1, K2, K3 and K4, and the value is this. Let us now talk about the qualitative analysis of cations. You have learned and performed qualitative salt analysis in your previous classes, where you were identifying the cation, the anion in a given salt, or the cations and anions in a given salt mixture. You would recall here that in cation analysis, the cations are placed in 6 different groups, first to 6, and we use a specific reagent to check for the presence of cations of a given group. The cations of a given group are then identified by the color and nature of the precipitate that is formed. The grouping of cations in this scheme is based on the principles of solubility product, its relationship with the solubility, and the effect of common ions and pH on the solubility equilibrium. Let us now learn about the separation of the groups in the cation analysis. Now let's start with the group 1 cations. You would recall here that the group reagent for the first group happens to be dilute HCl. This provides chloride ions that precipitate the group 1 cations as their chlorides. When we add dilute HCl to the salt solution, which contain different cations, the Pb2+, the Ag22+, or Ag+, they are precipitated because their chlorides are sparingly soluble and their solubility product is exceeded, whereas all the other chlorides with higher solubility product stay in the solution. The precipitated chlorides are then removed by filtration and identified. Now coming to the group 2 cations. The group 2 cations are precipitated as sulfides. The group reagent for the second group is H2S gas that is passed into the acidic solution obtained as a filtrate after removing the precipitate of the first group cations. H2S ionizes in the aqueous solution to provide sulfide ions that precipitate the group 2 cations. The hydronium ions, which have been formed from the ionization of HCl, act as a common ion and suppress the ionization of H2S, which is a weak diprotic acid. The concentration of sulfides therefore becomes less or very low, and as a consequence, only those cations are precipitated whose sulfides have a low solubility product. In the third group, the ammonium chloride followed by ammonia or ammonium hydroxide is used as the group reagent. This is added to the filtrate of the second group after boiling of the H2S. Ammonium hydroxide ionizes to provide the hydroxide ions that precipitate the cations as hydroxide. These are then filtered and analyzed. So ammonium hydroxide will ionize as NH4 plus and OH minus. Here, the added ammonium chloride provides the ammonium ions that suppress the ionization of ammonium hydroxide, thereby decreasing the concentration of the hydroxyl ions. As a consequence, only the hydroxides of the third group cations having low value of Ksp get precipitated. For the fourth group, we pass H2S again to the medium which is already alkaline due to the added ammonia in the third group. In this medium, the hydroxide ions from the ammonium hydroxide react with the hydronium ions obtained from the ionization of H2S to produce water, and they shift the ionization equilibria of H2S in the forward direction. Thereby, the concentration of the sulfides increases. As a result, what you see is that the cations whose sulfides have high solubility product are now precipitated out. Remember, they were not precipitated out in the acidic medium of the group 2. In the fifth group, the reagent is ammonium carbonate and the cations are precipitated as carbonates. The precipitates are filtered and identified. Once the carbonates are precipitated and filtered, the filtrate may contain sodium ions and potassium ions. These are soluble, so they are identified by specific tests. So with this, we wind up today's lecture. In today's lecture, we talked about solubility, the solubility of salt, why are certain salts more soluble, the others are less soluble. What is the effect of common ion on the solubility of salt? What is precipitation? How do you use selective precipitation for identifying cations? We have talked about the equilibrias and related it to the complex ions which are dissolved. We have also talked about the qualitative analysis of cations in detail. So with this, we wind up today's lecture. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. Wishing you all the best. Stay at home, stay safe, take care of your parents and family members. Thank you.